Welcome back to the True Walk Podcast, episode number 4. Our special guest today is David Flowers. And so right now we're close to Veterans Day, and I hope this thing does come out on Veterans Day. David was a sergeant in the Marines, and thank you for your service, by the way. I mean, that's I think the reason that we get to do what we're doing right now, the reason that we get to do the things that we do on a daily, is because of people like you, and I do from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
So David, of course, so let's just talk about the true walk.
Okay.
I just truly walked right out of the woods and put my tail in this seat right here, and you just truly walked out of work and come to sit right here in this seat.
True.
So that's our true walk for today, and so that's kind of how that worked out for us today. But anyway, so we always start off with a prayer, and so ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, if you bow your heads and take your hats off, gentlemen, and we're going to start a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day you've given us, Lord. Thank you for all the veterans out there, Lord, and thank you for the ones that gave the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to do the things that we do, Lord. Lord, we thank you for this platform that you have given us, Lord, to reach people today. And Lord, we ask you to be with David as he tells his story, Lord, and guide him through this, Lord. And if it reaches somebody out there, Lord, I hope it touches you the way that it'll touch us. Thank you, Lord, again for everything you do, Lord. Please lead, guide, and direct us. Forgive us for our sins. In your name and pray.
Amen.
So, what's been going on, brother? Like, what's been? Did you go hunting? Have you been hunting? What's been going on?
Yeah, so I literally just got back. Every year, I go to North Dakota.
Yeah.
So it's actually a buddy of mine that I was in the Marine Corps with. We went to Afghanistan together, and we both love duck hunting. And so he started coming to Tennessee. He lives in North Carolina, and he started coming to Tennessee, I guess, about 7 or 8 years ago. We duck hunt around here, and have a good time. But you know how it is around here. It's tough hunting.
It is.
And so we were frustrated one day, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we just go where the ducks are? And we just started researching. I started watching YouTube videos about freelancing North Dakota, and we just kind of got together and was like, let's do this. So 6 years ago, we made our first trip to North Dakota, and every year it's been a yearly thing. And it's not just him and I; it's some of his friends, some of my friends from work, things like that. So we just made our 6th trip to North Dakota, and every year is awesome. But we had a really good year this year, probably the best hunt I've ever been on in my entire life, and glad we got it, because after that, it's like the birds were gone.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's just like, so when they hit, it's just like being down here. When they're here, you better get them while they're here, because
Yeah,
once they move
it kind
on.
of really blew me away, because I knew the migration was going to be behind because it's been so warm this year. But I was shocked that we even got on birds the way we did. We split up. What we do is we split up, and we basically scout, and we try to get permission on a place. And we found one feed, and it was really the only feed that we found that we could get permission on. And birds were hitting. And this is all hunting in a dry field.
That's awesome.
So we went and got set up. Was hoping for a good day, and we were shooting them straight in our face. It was we had our limit before 9:30.
So when you get so the first time, I've hunted in dry fields, but many years ago, back when the ducks were here in the late '80s, early '90s, you go out cherry bottom. We would hit them back then, and it's a little different, but not very often do we get to do something like that. And then just recently, we went and hunted New York dry field on geese,
Yeah.
which is really neat, and that's a whole different. That's a whole different type of hunt, man. To me, that it is.
There's nothing
it's
like
good. No, it's as good as it gets. It's.
Whenever I was watching videos on YouTube, and I was like, man, if we could do this, I'm not an avid, I wouldn't say I'm a professional or anything like that. For us to drive up there, get permission, and hunt, and be like those videos, shooting them in our face all day long, it's been epic. And it was so good, we just decided doing it every year.
And it's work.
Yeah, it is. It's a
It's
lot of work.
a ton of work, man. So all that hard work goes in it, and then when you get rewarded like that, it makes it all better. You know,
Oh yeah.
it's just a whole different thing.
And it's not just the hunting, you know, it's the companionship, the fellowship.
Camaraderie,
Guys.
man.
Yeah, it's so good. Like we used to drive. I used to drive. It was like take us about 23 hours to drive there. We pull side by sides, enclosed trailers, decoys, layout blinds. And then you know, the trip was half the fun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But of course we'd be tired and wore out, but eventually we got to the point to where we met a lady in North Dakota we Airbnb from, and she was nice enough to let us leave our stuff. So we started flying.
Oh,
So this was the third year that I flew, and it just makes us fresh.
well, it's a whole lot.
Oh,
You know what? Because how long did it take you to drive? 18 hours? What it was?
No, so 19 hours is what it says on the GPS, but once you stop for fuel so many times and you got to use the bathroom, you got to get food, and we would drive it straight
Right,
about 23 hours.
23 hours, man. That's so you know that makes it a whole lot better fun. You know, because that 23 hours of driving will wear you down.
Yeah, no doubt.
It'll wear you down. So, you know, at every podcast that we do, every episode, I always ask, what is your favorite Bible verse? What is the Bible verse that you?
So the verse that I'm going to talk about is one that really just kind of grabbed a hold of me in the last year, I would say. And my story will kind of tell more about it, but it's Luke 9:23. And it says, if you want to be my disciple, um, deny yourself and pick up your cross daily and follow me.
Right.
So it's really been, it's not, you know, that verse really stands out to me, especially in my life for the past year, I would say, because, you know, I've really learned what it means to be, you know, a man of God and be a disciple. And every day I've got to deny myself because 100% of the sin that is in our lives is because we're selfish. We're selfish people. We're sinners. And, you know, everybody's a sinner. And, you know, and I've kind of learned a lot in the last year, you know, about myself and about, you know, building my relationship with God. And it kind of really opened my eyes up. And that verse, like, really stood out to me because, you know, daily you got to pick up your cross. You've got to choose God every day. You got to be all in 100%. And you've got to literally fight every day to deny yourself the selfishness and the sin that comes over you. You know,
You're right. You know, so the verse that comes to me, you know, so I was sitting in the blind today, you know, and I made like I spoke a little small sermon last week, and I wrote it 3 times because God was telling me something different every time, and by the time it got to it, it was totally different. So today I was sitting in the blind, it's like, you know, Psalms 46:10, be still and know I am God. Basically, you know, when he says that, it's like I understand you're having these issues. You know, I'm here. I
right?
understand that I am God. I am the top. I am you know
Almighty.
yep. He is the Almighty. You know, and but I'm gonna talk to you about something because when you truly have faith, when you because I've been lukewarm, you know, in and out, in and out, in and out. You know, I was always a Christian, but it was just, but when I give everything I had, and I told somebody the other day, if you really want your head to spin and your life to change, when you pray to God and say, God, please guide me in the direction that you want me to go, take me in the path that you want me to go, I said, you better buckle up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because when you do that, it's happening. But when you have that faith, what I was saying though is when you have that faith and that strong faith, how like major does your life change? Like and it could go from it's like a roller coaster ride, but it's like just a total difference. Like your whole body's different, your whole mindset's different, and everything around you's different.
Everything.
Do you agree?
100%. And that's what I was going to say is like, you know, you're talking about like you being lukewarm. Like I wouldn't say I've always, and you'll hear in my story, but you know, I thought I was saved and I thought I knew Jesus and I know who he was, but I didn't have a saving belief. and it talks, it talks in the Bible about whenever you're saved, like you become a new person. The old is gone and the new has come. And I thought in spurts that happened to me, but I never really had a true, complete turnaround of saving belief. And that's what I found in the past year. And I'm 40 years old, and I'm ashamed to say that, but I really shouldn't be ashamed because I'm glad that I am. But it's taken me this long to realize that, like I have a saving belief. Like I truly know that I'm a changed person. I truly know that I'm saved. And it took me a long, rough road to get here, but I'm so thankful for that.
Well, so when you think about it, and you look at the 12 disciples, Jesus didn't pick the best person out there.
No.
When
you look at everybody,
well, you look at all of them.
right?
Like, he did not pick the best people.
Right. Sinners.
He picked the people that were sinners, that when he grabbed them, it's just like when you get the Holy Spirit, just like when you get it, and you got it, 100% got it, you become a disciple. You become you leave Saul and become Paul.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I think a lot of people don't get, because for a long time myself, I always thought, man, I'm not worthy.
Right.
Like I'm not worthy. Like I don't. And honestly, that was my honest thought. And then once it started kind of grabbing me, and I started reading more, and and I read every morning, and I write a journal every day, and when I started really getting into it, man, I really realized right then, like, I am.
Yeah.
Everybody's sins. Everybody's a sinner. You're not going to hide from it. You're born in.
And I think that's what a lot of people kind of think of, like they say, well, I'm not good enough. And I've been that person to where, there's been people in my life, and even within the past year, that I look at and I'm like, I can never be like them. And I really thought that, like, I'm not good enough to ever be like them, because they walk a straight line, they're holy, they live their life for God. I can never be that. And then when God got a hold of me, I was like, I can be that person. It doesn't matter what my past was, because it's all forgiven. And like a whole new person, I can be anything that God wants me to be. You just got to put your trust in Him, and you've got to build a relationship. It's not just, hey, I know Jesus died for me and He rose again and He's waiting in heaven. He's going to come back and get me one day. It's not that. It's like I'm having a relationship with Him. I'm reading the Word. I'm in church every time the doors are open. Like I'm looking past all of just the similar things. It's like I call it all in. You got to be all in. And that's what people got to understand, is like you don't wait till you're good. You don't have to be perfect, because nobody's perfect. And I've learned that from those people that I looked up to, and I'm like, I can never be them. And they're normal people too. They're sinners. Everybody's a sinner. You sin daily, whether you want to or not. It's embedded in us.
Right.
And that's great. The grace of God sending Jesus to die for our sins is what saves us. We can't control it. The only thing I can control is I've got to wake up every day, and I've got to deny myself, and I've got to live for God, whatever that is. And I struggle. Everybody struggles. So, if they're out there, if somebody's out there, like, you don't have to wait to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. The only man that was ever perfect was Jesus. And all you can do is wake up every day and strive to be more like Him and build a relationship with Him. And
exactly right.
I mean, that's all it is, and I stumble, I fall, everybody does, but every day I've made a conscious decision that I'm going to try not to put myself first. I'm going to put others first, and I'm going to try to live for God. And whatever He wills me to do, then that's where I'm going to go. And I was super excited when you asked me to come on here, because I was like, this is, and I prayed before I got here, and I just said, God, speak through me.
So, and I've told, I know for a fact too, people, when you sit down in these seats, and what we're doing here, I explained this to the other guests, right? I said, when you sit down, of course I pray a lot, but when you sit down, God takes over.
100%.
He takes over. Like when you sit here, what comes out of your mouth is you're guided, man. Because I try to explain that. They get nervous. But once you sit down and you start, it's like
Yep.
it flows, man. And it this thing was built on God regardless. I had no intentions to ever doing something like this. Didn't know anything about it, but I was led to do this. And the reason that I feel like I'm led to do this is because I want to reach at least one person every time we do this. I want to reach as many as I can, but if I could just reach one or with a story, with your story, not me, but I'm just saying when they watch this, if we could reach one person, that's the whole purpose. It's a God driven thing.
Well, I think it speaks more to people whenever you look at somebody, and I know, we live in a small town and everybody knows who I am and I've made mistakes. And, if somebody could look at me and say, if he can change, anybody can change, and that's my testimony. I hope that my testimony is for somebody out there that says, God is real, and that's all I can hope for.
So I'm going to look at you guys right now. He's going to tell his story. He's getting ready to tell his story. I want each and every one of you that are listening to this, I want you to open your heart. I want you to open your minds, and I want you to pray about this, because what's going to come out of David from his heart, which is led, by our Lord and Savior. I want you to read into this, take in all of it, and understand that not one single person is perfect. Nobody. Jesus Christ. So Dave, go ahead.
So I really don't know where to begin. I guess, I'll start from the very beginning, because I feel like I can't truly tell my whole story without starting from the very beginning. So, a lot of people don't know my background. I don't share it. I'm not a very open person. I don't share a lot of stuff, but there's one thing about, whenever God changes your life, is that he gives you the strength and the courage to come out and just be honest and frank and tell the truth about, things that you normally wouldn't talk about, because, somebody could be going through the same thing, or maybe have gone through the same thing. And hopefully it God moves on their heart. But for me, I grew up very, in my eyes, I had a very rough upbringing, I guess you could say. Typical. Both my parents were in the military. My dad spent 21 years in the Army. My mom spent 4 years in the Army. I have a brother, Joey, and a lot of you know him. So he's my only biological brother. My mom and my dad got married while they were in the Army, and then they had my brother, then they had me. And my dad was in the Army, and my mom was getting out, I guess, but they had me. I was about a year old, and I was about a year old, and they split up. They divorced. So I went with my mom, like most parents do. They go with their mother, and for whatever reason, I don't know, whatever struggle she was going through in her life, she showed up on my dad's front door and said, "I need you to take the boys for a while because I can't do it right." And of course, my dad took us. I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then my dad got transferred to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And this is the first recollection that I have of my life, is being in Fort Dix, New Jersey, on an Army base. I was very young, and my dad, was still in the Army, and my dad was my dad. He was a drill sergeant on the drill field for 8 years. But like I said, he spent 21 years in the Army. And growing up, it was very drill sergeant like. It was, do this or I'm going to punish you. You're going to get disciplined, whether it be, from doing push-ups, standing in the corner, getting whipped, getting beat, whatever it took. That was the way my dad was. And so once my dad got us, my mom never got us back. And it was because of her lifestyle. And my dad remarried, and he had met another woman, and she had a couple of kids herself. Well, then my dad retired from the Army and we moved to Waverly, Tennessee. So my dad was born and raised in Waverly. My grandmother was here, my grandfather was here, but my grandfather, my actual grandfather, he passed away when my dad was 19 and he was 51. So my grandmother had remarried and she had left their home, like the house that I lived in growing up was right in the middle of town on Wiley Street, small little brick home that my family had built a long time ago. Like that's where my dad was raised. And so, that's where we came back to. And I was with this new family, this new mom, this stepmom, and her couple of daughters. And then my grandma lived in McEwen. So she had remarried and her husband worked at TVA. And they had bought a farm in McEwen. And all my memories growing up was going out to her farm. She had 5 ponds. We'd go fishing. I'd go hunting. I would go do whatever outdoors. And that's some of the best memories I have. But so my dad was an alcoholic. And, he's always been that way. He would get off work and he would immediately, pop a beer. And he would drink all night, and that's just what he did. Well, when my dad got out of the Army, he was, married to this woman. He started traveling as a truck driver. So that's the job that he got when he got out of the military. So he was a truck driver and he was a long hauler. So he'd be gone for weeks at a time. And his stepmom was the one that pretty much raised us while my dad was gone. Well, she was just as bad as him as far as drinking goes. She would drink, she would beat us. She was having an affair on my dad. A bunch of drama going on. I was really, really young. I really don't remember a whole lot, except for whenever I was in kindergarten at Waverly Elementary School. One day, my grandma came and picked me up, and she was like, "Hey, I'm picking you up. You're going to go with me." And I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "You're going to come with me for a while." So what had happened is that I guess they had a big falling out. I don't know what it was about, but essentially, she had left him for another man, completely wiped out his bank account, and also made accusations against him about her daughters and had him arrested. So, at that time, I was so young, I really didn't know what's going on, but I went to live with grandma. And that's where my story really begins because my grandma was my mom. She was my everything to me. She always had a great head on her shoulder. She's the one who first introduced me to church. We went to a small church out in McEwen, and that's why I first learned about God and who Jesus was. And my grandma would always give me such encouraging words. She would just say, "Hey, you can't help who your family is. You can't help what goes on, with your family. You can only help yourself." She's like, "All I want you to ever do is to remember that you make your own decisions, you choose your own life, and you can live for you and not basically repeat the cycle." So long story short, 3 years goes by and dad gets found innocent of everything and he's able to get us back. So I leave my grandma, go back to my dad. Well, he couldn't really keep us because he was still traveling. So he changed jobs and got a job where he could drive more local. Well, then he got married again. So just to say right out front is he's been married 5 times. I apparently have a sister that I've never met. I've got a brother that I've never met. And I've got an older half brother that, I do know. And then I've got a younger half brother that I also know. I don't have relationships really with any of them except for Joey. Obviously 2 of them I've never met. But so kind of going through that. Well, anyways, he gets married again. He marries a young woman, and same thing. She's young, wild, doing drugs, drinking, just living that party life. And my dad just put up with it. And at that time I started getting older and I was realizing, hey, I was telling my dad what was going on. He was like, "There's nothing I can do." He's like, if I run her off or get divorced, then I won't be able to keep you because of my work. I guess he hadn't left. He was still doing Long Road at that time. So, anyways, he goes through, and finally she up and leaves, and leaves us, the kids, by ourselves, and she just goes on and never comes back. So at that point, they had a son together, and it was at that point it was me, my brother, and my younger brother. My younger brother was just a baby. My Joey, he had, obviously got old enough, and he went through his trials or whatever, and he moved on and he went and joined the Navy. And so it was just me and my dad and my little brother, and we were at that house, and I was getting into high school, and I practically had to raise my younger brother. I grew up very poor. My dad didn't have a whole lot of money. I can remember Christmases not getting anything. I can remember Christmases where neighbors would bring in toys just for us to have for Christmas. And, everything I've ever had for, in my entire life, I've had to work for. As soon as I was able to work at 15, I started working. The only thing my dad ever paid for me growing up was my lunch money at school, $7.25 a week. So I immediately started working. So I was working, was playing football, and I was taking care of my little brother. And it would be to the point to where, he was in diapers, and I would cook, I would clean, I would do laundry. I had to do everything, and I still had to work, and I still was playing football, and that's stuff that I didn't want to give up. So I just did it, and my dad would just sit there. He was depressed because of everything that had gone on in his life, and he would get home from work and he would just drink until he passed out on the couch. And as I got older, and just to say, I'm not just going to sit here and knock my dad because, he had his own demons that he fought. But I will say this, that my dad always was there for us. He took care of us. Was he the best dad? No. And my goal was to be the complete opposite of him. That's my goal. Because all the years that I played sports, I can only think of one game that he ever came to and actually watched me. And I think that was like senior night, because he had to be there to escort us out. And of course, he smelled like a brewery while he was there. So as I was getting older in high school, I started dating, and, I started going out with friends, and, it got to the point to where one night I was at home and I said, hey, I've cooked, I've cleaned, I've done everything I can do. I'm going to go see my girlfriend tonight. And he was like, no, you're not. And I was like, why not? He's like, because I need you to stay here and watch your little brother. And I said, I'm going to see my girlfriend, and that's what I'm going to do. I've done everything I can do. You just want me to stay here because you're drunk, and you don't want me to leave because you want me to take care of him. I was like, but I've already made plans. I'm going to go. I think I was 17 years old. And of course, at this time, it's like, I started getting a little bowed up and, thinking I was bigger and badder and all that stuff. So, of course, my dad had been drinking, and he slapped me across my face. And that was the first time I ever stood up to my dad, and I said, you will never hit me like that again. And I got in the truck and I left. And I came back the next day, and all my stuff was on the front porch. He told me to get out. So there I was, a senior in high school, 17 years old, and I had nowhere to go. So I just bounced around friends' houses here and there, and of course I was drinking and partying, and I was just doing whatever I wanted to do. And it got to the point to where, I think a lot of that affected me through school, because obviously it affected me, but, I would kind of vent by drinking, and then I was never good at holding my temper back. So I would get in a lot of fights. And after football season, I really went downhill. I was drinking all the time and just being stupid. And one night I got into a fight. I followed a guy to his house, and I got out and started fighting him, and his dad called the cops. And luckily I wasn't driving. I had somebody drive me, but the police came and I got arrested. And I was a senior in high school. So I got arrested for underage consumption, possession of alcohol, and aggravated assault. And so the only person I had to call was my dad, you know. So I called my dad and he came and bailed me out of jail. And the very next day, I just got up, went and got my truck, and I left. You know, I didn't say anything to him. And I just continued bouncing around. And then I stayed with one close friend of mine for a long time, pretty much the rest of my year, the rest of my senior year. And I was thankful that their family brought me in and let me stay with them because it really settled me down a lot because I had, you know, some normalcy going on. They had, you know, a mom and a dad, and, you know, there would be dinner, and they trusted me. And um, so as I was going toward the end of high school, I had had some opportunities. I got offers to go to JUCO to play football, but it was in Mississippi. And I was dating this girl, and I was like, you know, I don't want to leave because she was a year younger than me, and I was like, I'm not going to go. And really, I depended on her a lot because she was all I had, I felt like. And right there at the end of the school year, she ended up breaking up with me. And it just completely, that was like, that was the icing on top of everything. And I don't know, I just kind of lost myself, you know, like didn't know what I was going to do. So I moved in with my grandma. And my grandma, again, you know, being the backbone that she supported me and, you know, and talked to me and kind of pushed me to go to college. So I sent some tape to Tennessee Tech, and they offered me a preferred walk on. So my grandma paid for my schooling, and I went to Tennessee Tech University. And of course, I get to Tennessee Tech, and you know, I'm playing football, and you know, I'm getting big and strong, and meeting new people, and partying, and doing everything. Well, this is really where my story gets interesting. Is the there was like this big 5-star running back that was from Alabama that went to Tennessee Tech, and you know, I knew who he was. And it was kind of strange because he came up to me, was just very friendly, talking to me, and I'm just a petty old walk on, you know. And he was like, "Hey man, what are you doing this? What are you doing this evening?" And I was like, "Just hanging out in the dorm. I don't know." And he was like, "Well, if you don't mind, we'll come by this evening and we'll go hang out." I said, "Okay." So he come and knocked on my dorm room later that night, and he was like, "You ready?" And I was like, "Yeah, what are we gonna do?" And he had a Bible in his hand. He said, "We're going to a Bible study." And I was like, "What?" You know, at that time in my life, I was like, you know, wow, you know, this is weird. Like, you know, that's not me. But I went because I was trying to be nice, and you know, obviously, I thought a lot of the guys, so I went, and that was the first time in my life, and that was when I thought that I truly got saved because I'd spent so much time with those guys, like reading the Word, going to Bible studies. Of course, they had a campus youth college group, you know, where we would go and meet and we would worship and we would go to Bible studies and we would go to church on Wednesdays and Sundays. And like, I was invested because I started meeting new people, new friends, and I completely changed my ways. When I talk, and I really thought this at this point in my life, I had changed. I'm talking about in my dorm room, I went from having beer bottles and beer cans and beer boxes and stuff all over my walls to tearing all that down to putting Jesus posters on my wall and getting in and reading the Word by myself. And it was to the point to where people looked at me, my friends, my old friends, even my roommate at the time was like, "You're weird, man. Like, what's wrong with you? You're just a Bible thumper now. Like, you're so different now." And they wouldn't even want to hang out with me or even be around me. And it, like, really affected me. You know, I felt persecuted because I had changed, and I thought it was a good thing. You know, and all my friends were denying me, and I really, really struggled at that time. And I never in my life ever wanted to join the military. All I ever cared about was football. My dad was in the military. My uncle, my grandfather, my brother, everybody was in the military. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to college. You know, like I had this mindset in my mind, like I'm going to go this route instead of that route. But I was so depressed at that time because I was like, I'm doing good, but yet I'm being persecuted for it. And I just struggled. So I just started praying to God, like literally praying to God, like, I don't know what to do in my life. I'm so unhappy. What do you want me to do? Show me what you want. And of course, I was poor, and my grandma was paying for my college. So not only was I playing college football, but I also had a job working at the Sonic in Cookville. So I was working, and like I said, I kept praying, kept praying. And for some reason, every time I turn on the radio, I'd hear something about the Marine Corps, or I'd see a commercial on the TV, or I would see a bulletin that says something about the Marines, and I was like, "That's weird." So like I prayed about it. I said, "God, are you trying to tell me that I need to join the Marine Corps? Like, this is silly." And I really pondered on it, prayed about it, and um, I was like, God, if this is really what you're pointing me to do, please give me a sign, like a legitimate sign. So I was sitting in my dorm room one night and I had a paper due that I had to do, and I ran out of printer paper. So I went to Cookville Walmart, and I'm in Walmart, and I'm just walking around, and I'm in the printer paper aisle where all the printers are, and I'm sitting there. And this guy walks up to me. He's like, "Can I help you find anything?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just looking for some printer paper." And so strange that somebody, I thought he worked there. And he was like, "So you're a student at Tennessee Tech?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And I said, "What do you do?" And he's like, "I'm a Marine recruiter here in Cookville." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, I was like, "So what do you do?" He's like, I basically just, try to recruit people to join the Marine Corps. He's like, "I'd love to sit down with you and talk to you if you're able, and maybe get to know you a little bit." And I was like, "Sure." So the very next day, we set up a meeting. He came to campus, and I sat down and talked with him. And he just talked to me about joining the Marine Corps. And I went and signed up. I didn't tell anybody. I just went and signed up. And when you join the Marine Corps, they have a card, and it says, "Why do you join the Marine Corps? Why did you join the Marine Corps?" And I literally put on that card because God told me to. So that is the reason why I joined the Marine Corps. And it is, I say it all the time, it is the best thing that I've ever done in my entire life. Like, it completely, shaped me who I am, and pointed me in the direction. And at that time, like, I literally thought I was truly saved, and I was like, I'm all in. My life, it is my real first experience, like getting to know the Word and who God was. And I trusted in Him. I put all my faith in Him, and I let Him lead me. And it led me to the Marine Corps. And so I joined the Marine Corps. And so that was in 2004. I'd only spent a year at Tennessee Tech. And so I joined the Marine Corps in 2004. And all through boot camp, I had people from my youth group write me letters, and I was motivated that I was going to stay committed to God. And then the Marine Corps took over. Like, the Marine Corps is a giant fraternity of, killers. Essentially, you're trained to kill. That's what you do. And so the mentality is you train to fight, you train to kill, you train to shoot. Everything you do is about that, and that lifestyle brought on a whole nother lifestyle for me. And in my mind, I was like, I'm never getting married. I've seen what my dad's gone through, and I just started drinking and just going through women. That's all I cared about. I was like, I'm going to drink, and who's the next girl that I can find? And that was the lifestyle that I lived in the Marine Corps. So then in 2006, I was deployed to Iraq, and that was my first deployment. So I went to Iraq, and honestly, I thought, you don't know what to think when you're going to war. Like, you train and you do all this stuff, and you're going there, and you're like, in your mind, you're like, I'm going to die. This is it. Like, I'm going to die. Of course, I didn't know how it was going to be, but essentially, I was a combat engineer. So my job as a combat engineer of the Marine Corps is we get attached. Combat engineer companies get attached to infantry battalions, and we support infantry battalions. Our job is we fortify positions. We at that time, at my time in the Marine Corps, was we sweep for mines or IEDs, which IEDs was the big thing. So we would attach to infantry units, and we were basically point men that would go out and clear paths for IEDs. And then we would also find weapons caches, and we did demolitions. So we were breachers. So if we needed to blow a door to get into somewhere, we'd blow a door, blow a wall, we'd blow a wall, anything. So anything explosive wise, that's what we did. And, I think I wasn't there very long. And the first mission that I went on, and it's just kind of, I look back at it now when I think about all that God has done for me, and I didn't deserve it. So this is kind of one of those stories that I'm telling that, like, why me? I don't know. But the very first mission we went on, we were Euphrates River, which now is a biblical, is all over the Bible. But I was basically along the Euphrates River, and our mission was to sweep along the river and find weapons caches and bad guys. So that's what we did. We loaded up, and I was attached to Second LAR, which is a light armored reconnaissance vehicle, infantry, basically mobile in a 6-wheeled vehicle, and or 8-wheeled vehicle. And we would mount up and we would drive and we'd get out and we would sweep looking for weapons caches, bad guys, whatever. Well, the insurgents at that time would bury all their weapons caches, so like AKs, mortars, 155-pound bombs, everything that they could get, they would bury it in the ground so nobody would find it. And then they would just run and get whatever they needed and pull it out and then go use it. Well, our job was to sweep the Euphrates River because we had intel that they were hiding their munitions there, and we started finding weapons caches. So our mission was to basically go from point A to whatever the point B was. And it was like a week-long mission. Well, as we were going, we were finding weapons caches, weapons caches, weapons caches. And then all of a sudden, we started finding where they were moving. So we would find, okay, somebody's obviously been here and moved this. Well, we hadn't been attacked or anything yet. And one thing about it is like being attached to an infantry unit like that, like you get to know guys you've never met before. So we're literally in a vehicle. That is your base. That is your home. That is what you operate out of. So whoever that crew was, they had a driver and a driver, and they had a machine gunner, and they had infantry crew that would get out and they would, do their infantry stuff. They were called scouts. So when we were assigned to a vehicle, that became like your family. You know what I mean? You'd spend days with them, nights with them, whatever. And it was guys that I'd never really met. So we were starting to get to know each other and everything like that. Well, as we were going through this mission, we started realizing that they were moving on. So our CO, commanding officer, decided that we were going to go to our end point and work back this way. So that's what our plan was. So that night I guess they had come up with this plan, but there was a refuel truck and some supplies that had come out and met us on the road, and they ran over an IED and it like blew a tire off of one of the vehicles. So we were stationary waiting for them to get that fixed. And then a bomb went off down the road, and what it was two bad guys were in a car. They pulled up and they were placing an IED in the ground, and they made a mistake and it blew them up. So fortunately, they blew themselves up, but they were setting an IED for us. So we got ready to load up, and for whatever reason, the first sergeant came over to me and my crew, which was basically 3 guys, the engineers, and said, I need you to go to the second vehicle because we have detainees that we just detained from this explosion, and we're going to put them in this vehicle that y'all are in, and we need you to go to the second vehicle. We're like, okay. So I grab my guys and we go get in the vehicle. We leave, and I'm like, they've got hatches where you stick your head out and you like provide security off the side and off the back. Well, we're running a convoy, and the first vehicle, the second vehicle, and the third vehicle was what I was on. And we were driving to the place that we were going to set up for the night to stay the night, and then we were going to start working back. And I'm talking about, I just got on that vehicle, and it maybe been 5 minutes. And like we went through what we call a choke point. It was a road, and there was a choke point there, and it kind of curves down and goes down. And I just had this eerie feeling in my stomach like we shouldn't be doing this. And I remember looking out the back hatch as we rolled through it, and then the vehicle that I was just on rolled through it, and it hit an I-80. And I can remember it being like slow motion, and the vehicle just going up into the sky, like literally getting blown up into the sky and then coming down. And of course, our immediate reaction is we had to get out as engineers and sweep our way up to the vehicle. So we were the very first ones there. And, that was the first casualties that we had taken. And that was the guys that I had just been spending days with. And then I walk up on them and they're laying there dead. And I was just thinking, like, how does that happen? Like, I was literally just on that vehicle 5 minutes ago. So at that time, it like really opened my eyes, like maybe I should start praying more. Maybe I should get back into this because I'm probably going to die out here, and I've said this to people before is like, you've heard the saying, there's no atheist in a foxhole. Whenever you're scared or you're going through all that, you're going to pray. And so, I started getting back into it, and somehow, some way, like I finished that deployment and came home. And I guess I really struggled coming back from deployment because in the Marine Corps, like you hear about people like having a hard time adjusting from civilian life, military life, and all that. Well, when I came back, in the Marine Corps, you're somebody. You're respected. You're somebody. Like, even if you're just an NCO or staff NCO or squad leader, whatever it may be, you're somebody to somebody. Like, there's respect. And then you go out with your friends and you're going to a bar or something like that, and then you have some young punk, in my mind, bump into you and then cuss you, and I would lose my mind. Like, my drinking and my fighting like escalated at that point. And that was just the lifestyle that I was living. That was the Marine Corps lifestyle. And so in 2010, I had an opportunity to go to Afghanistan. And I really could have got out, but I chose to not get out and extend my enlistment to go on that deployment. And the reason I did that is because whenever I was in Iraq, I was a young corporal who just picked up corporal. And I had people lead me in Iraq, and I've been to one war, so I was like, it's my time to make sure I take care of my guys, and that's what I did, So I signed up and went to Afghanistan, and like we were in 29 Palms, California. We were doing a workup to get ready to deploy, and my grandma had cancer, and she passed away, and so I flew home. And got to see, my grandma's funeral right before I deployed to Afghanistan. But during that time, I had a friend of mine that I had been hanging out with here in town, and he had a girlfriend, and she asked me, she was like, "Why are you single?" I said, "Because I choose to be, like it's just not for me." And she was like, "Well, that's a shame because I know a girl who would be perfect for you." And I thought, okay, well, who is she? She told me who she was, and I was like, well, give her my number, whatever. So I started talking to her, and I went back to California, never met her, never talked to her. I just talked to her while I was gone. We got to know each other, and then I hadn't even got to meet her, but my grandma passed away, so I got to come home. And that was the first time I ever met her, was when my grandma passed away. And, 25 years old, has got a good job, pretty, seems like way different. I was like, man, this is what I need in my life. I need something like this. This is the direction I want to go. And I thought, this is what I need. It's time for me to change. It's time for me to lock down. And, I really like this girl. So we kept in touch the whole time I was in Afghanistan. And, but, in Afghanistan, I don't know if it was because I had met her or what it was, but when I was in Afghanistan, maybe it's because I'd been to war before, I don't know. But like, I had my Bible, I had devotions, I would read my Bible every day, read devotions every day. And it was to the point to where some Marines also started getting in there with me and reading the word, and they had never even done it before. And all of a sudden, we started having like little groups where we would read the word and stuff and just go over stuff. And some of the older Marines, or senior Marines, they saw it, not every Marine is like that. And they would make comments like, oh, you're one of them Bible thumpers, huh? And I was like, here we go again. I was like, man, I'm just trying to learn. But, I knew that Afghanistan was going to be tough compared to Iraq. And I really honestly didn't think I was going to come home. Like we had literally probably one of the most dangerous jobs in the Marine Corps was to go out and find IEDs. And that's what they were using against us. And, but somehow, some way, I just put my faith in God and trust in Him. And I can remember praying every night, God, just please let me make it through this. Just let me make it home. All I want to do in my life is to get married and have kids and have a chance to raise them and watch them grow and give them the life that I never had. That was my prayer. And I made it through, like I was able to come home. And I could talk about Afghanistan forever. I mean, there's just so much that I could talk about, but I'm not going to go into that. But so I got home and ended up rushing into, I say rush, I mean, it was quickly, I got married, and I was like, this is it, God saved me. I've got this perfect girl. I'm going to live my life for her. We're going to be in church. She was a godly woman. Her family was a godly woman. We were going to church. And, that was the life that I was going to live. And I struggled because it was a hard adjustment going from the Marine Corps to normal life. I really struggled, like I wasn't happy. I didn't know what to do when I got out of the Marine Corps. I had got my associate's degree at a community college while I was in the Marines, and I came home and I was like, I guess I'll be a police officer. So I became a police officer, and I was a police officer here in Humphreys County, and I thought that was the life for me, like I'm going to do this, and got married, and things were good, and then, started coaching football while I was policing and helping with the football team. And, that was my passion. I love football. And, that was the life that I was living. And I thought things were good, but honestly, I was so unhappy because I was not happy in the job that I was doing because I thought it would be like the military, but it was nothing like the military. And I had struggled with drinking and losing my temper. And there was a couple incidents that happened in my marriage where I was drinking and I lost my temper and blacked out and, just did stupid stuff, and one of those stupid things cost me my job as a police officer because there was a time where Humphreys County was going through some stuff, and if anything else was to happen, it would look really bad on them. Essentially, I had been drinking and I got into a fight with a guy who was a lawyer and in another state, and he wrote the sheriff a letter and said, here's a picture of my face, this is what happened, take care of it or I'm going to the news. And so I was let go, and there's not many people that know that. A lot of people think that I just left because I decided I was going to go to school. But here I was married, my wife at the time was pregnant with my first child, and I don't have a job anymore. And it's coming up on Christmas. And I was devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. So with coaching and everything going on, I decided I'll just go get my bachelor's degree and I'll be a teacher and a football coach. So that's what I did. So fortunately enough, I had the VA benefits that paid for my school and also paid me living expense for me to go to school. So that's what I did. And I went from an associate's degree to a bachelor's degree in 1 year. I took as many classes as I could, as fast as I could, so I could get through as quickly as I could. Because at that time, I was motivated. I mean, I had a wife, I had a child, and I was like, I got to get a job. I got to have some type of, lifestyle. I've got to provide for my family. And that was a really difficult time. I mean, it put a lot of strain on our marriage, and so I finally made it through. I got the job, I became a teacher, and started coaching football, and then football. You know how football is. Football is consuming. It consumes a lot of the coaches. They put in a lot of time, and I was spending every day game planning, practice schedules, watching film, doing everything. And the more that I spent time away from my family, the more that I grew away from them. And I started thinking about myself. I kind of got an ego about myself. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm liked. I felt good about myself. I became selfish. And so I started thinking about myself to the point to where, I started having an affair. And it cost me my marriage. And, you know, at that point, like that was probably the lowest I've ever been in my entire life because there were some things that were going on and there were some accusations against me that weren't true. And like, it was all because of that affair. And I'd lost my marriage. I'd lost my daughter. I had lost my, I'd lost myself. Like I had all these people. There was accusations against me that weren't true, and it was because I was dating a younger girl, 10 years younger than me, and people thought their own thing, and it ruined me. Like people had in their mind that I was this awful person, when truly, yes, I'm an awful person. I made mistakes, but um, it was the lowest point in my life ever, and I was so depressed. And I didn't turn to God. I didn't put God in my. I didn't have God in my life. I was completely turned against Him. Like I was so far gone that I would literally turn away from Him. And somehow, some way, He always provides, and I have no idea why I deserved it, but I got a job at TVA, and it completely changed my life. Like I got a good job, and then me and Kaylin got married, and now we're sitting here and we've got 4 kids and a great life, and I'm able to provide for my family, and thought I had it going on, and there was so much shame and guilt between the two of us throughout our lives that we kind of just kept to ourselves, and then we're like, we need to go to church, we need to get into a church, but we felt so judged at every church that we went to. And I can remember just feeling so much shame and uh, just being depressed. And we would talk. It put strain on our marriage, and it's my fault. I'm the one that did it. I'm the bad guy. I was. That's who I am. And all I could think in my mind as I was going through all that is I'm just trying. All my life I've ever wanted to do was break the cycle of my family in the way that I grew up, and here I was doing the same exact stuff. Putting my own self and my own family and the people around me and the people that love and care about me through crap because of my selfishness, because I was putting me first. I was thinking of myself. And, it really, I just turned away from God. But like, Kaylin, she was like, we need to get into church. We're going to find a place to go. So we literally went church shopping. We tried to go to different churches, and there'd be something about it that I didn't like, or I'd feel judged, or somebody would know me and it'd be like, oh, look at them. We know what they're about. I just felt so judged. And rightfully so, I guess, like there was just like this shame all over me. And it affected our marriage, and then we had some great years, like things were going good. We were going to church. And again, I don't know why, but just selfishness, I started thinking of myself, and next thing you know, I'm back in the same boat again. Uh, Stepped outside of my marriage. And at this time, in my mind, I knew I was guilty. I knew I was going to get caught. But at this point, like I didn't care. Like I was so far gone, Michael, like I did not care anymore. Like I didn't think about my kids, I didn't think about my wife, I didn't think about her friends or family. I didn't think about anything. All I thought about was me. And I was just so blind. Like I don't even know who I was. I was so blind. And I'd never been like this in my life. And I just felt so guilty, ashamed, and it was just like I'm such a terrible person for the things that I've done that all I wanted to do was just stay hidden and not face it. You know, I was like, I know I'm when she finds out, I'm gone. And I'm gonna lose my children. I'm gonna lose my marriage. I'm gonna lose my house. I'm gonna lose everything. And it's all my fault. And I knew it was going. And it would be same old David doing the same thing. He's never going to change. He's the same guy. And I was, and I deserved all of that. And I thought that that was the way it was going to go. Like I was so ashamed for what I had done that I felt like it would be like everybody's like, he's just awful. He's terrible. Same old him, same old him. But what blew me away, and this is God, because my wife had been so invested and put God first in her life that He armored her and prepared her for what she was about to go through. And that was to find out that I was having an affair. And instead of telling me to go and get out and get away and leave, she stood firm and fought for me. I didn't deserve it. She showed me God's grace when she didn't have to and didn't deserve to. And I mean, that's something to me that's like mind blowing. Like, why? Why would you want to fight for our marriage? I don't deserve this. You don't deserve this. Like, you deserve more than anything in the world. You know, I'm a bad guy. I've always been a bad guy. Grew up this life and had a rough life growing up. I'm trying to break the cycle. I'm never going to break the cycle. And at that point, I was like, it is what it is. Like, I'm just, at that point, I was like, I'm a failure. And I was so concerned. I was like, please don't tell anybody. Let's just keep it between us. Let's work this out. I didn't want to work it out. I didn't want to work it out, but I didn't want her to tell anybody because I wanted to keep it private because I'd done it before, you know, and already had this bad rap. And I was thinking about myself, being selfish. Like, don't tell anybody. Let's keep it a secret. But I'm done. But she told everybody. She was not ashamed. She told everybody. And that bothered me because, again, I was thinking to myself, like, what are other people going to think about me? What are other people going to say about me? And I just felt like crawling into a hole. But what blew me away and what truly saved me was seeing all those people that I love, that we love, that are closest to us, that we care about the most, instead of telling her to leave, they told her to fight for me. And they fought along with her. They didn't shame me. And all I could think about was, you know, he leaves the 99 for the one. You know, and what's crazy is the first call she made was to our preacher. And she told him what was going on. And I was gone 100%. And the very next morning, he preached a sermon. And I didn't even know he preached it, but I later, after coming to, had found out that he had preached a sermon, and it was about leaving the 99 to go find the one, and how important it is that even though that one is straight away, far away, that you leave and you go get it and you bring that person back. And he was literally calling out to me in his sermon for me to come back. And I'm getting chills just talking about it. But I don't know what it is, but we were sitting there in the living room and I was completely oblivious, didn't care. I was ready to be gone. There was so much shame in my life that I didn't care. I was ready to go. I was ready to lose it all. And then just something came over me, and God spoke to me, and He said, "Go, just go." And I was like, "What?" And it was for the first time. It was like I had blinders on, and then all of a sudden, it was just clear as day, and I could see everything around me. And I realized how many people were fighting for me. You know, I'm the sheep that strayed away, and so many people were out searching for me, pulling for me to come back. And all I could hear was just go. So I picked up the phone and I texted my preacher and I texted Michael Purcell and I said, "I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you now." And we went, they said, "Meet me at the church." And I literally just got up and I said, "I got to go." And Karen was like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I just got to go." And I remember getting in the truck that night, driving as fast as I can. I felt like I was like driving to save my life because there was such an urge for me to go to my preacher and just confess to him and talk to him and tell him what I had done and that I didn't want to do this anymore. Like at that point in my life, like God grabbed a hold of me and I saw the love around people and it just said, "Go. It's time for me to go." And it opened up my eyes. And in that church with my preacher and Michael, I confessed everything. I prayed to God. I repented for my sins. And I made a vow that I was going to be all in. And that completely changed my life. And, you know, I've learned from that you got to be all in. There is no little bit. There is no showing up to church on Sunday morning. It's you're all in. You're showing up Sunday morning, Sunday school, Sunday night, Wednesday night. You're reading the Word. You're checking yourself every single day, fighting against yourself to be a better person and live for God. And that's what came over me. And I'm just so thankful because never in my life have I ever felt that way. And to say, you know, I don't even feel guilty anymore. Like the guilt is gone, the shame is gone. Like normally I'd be so embarrassed to talk about this, about what I've done and who I am and the past that I've had, but I don't care. Like it's gone. Because I know, and people may not believe it, but I know deep inside me, God has changed my life. And and I believe now, and it's a saving belief. Like there is no, I'm cleaning my house up and God's going to come in, He's going to check this room, and oh, it's clean, but I'm hiding stuff in my closet. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm letting Him have the whole house. Look at it. Every day, I'm fighting to be a different person. And you don't have to be perfect to have a relationship with God. Nobody's perfect. We all sin. I don't care who you are. You say, you do, you think things that we should not. And that is sin. And we have to battle that our entire lives. We were born into that. We were born into sin. And the only one that can ever forgive that sin is God. Jesus Christ. He sent Jesus to die on the cross to take our place for our sin. He completely washes it away. I mean, and all I can do every day, and that's why I say Luke 9:23 is such a special scripture to me or verse to me, because I have to wake up every day and say, I'm going to be a disciple for God, and I'm going to deny myself daily. I'm going to pick up my cross daily, and I'm going to follow Him. And it's a fight every single day. It is not easy. You see people, people get this perception of, oh, look at him, or look at her, she's in church, they're so fake. You hear that from people. I hear that. And it's like, okay, maybe some people aren't there or aren't fully in, as I call it, all in. But whenever God gets a hold of you, He changes you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. And you want that desire to be a better person, and it's like all I want to do is live for Him. That's it. I want to raise my children to know who Jesus was. I want to, you know, let everybody know who Jesus is. That I want to be a disciple of Christ. I want people to look at me and say, if He can do it, anybody can do it. Like God is real. Like He can change your life. And I can tell you for the past year, my life has been completely opposite than I've ever had in all my life. And I'm 40 years old. Like I've been through so much ups and downs and bad and ugly and sin and nasty and everything. And to finally realize that all I had to do was trust in Him and believe in Him. And you can choose Him, but He chooses you. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to put in the work, but He chooses you. And it's just completely changed my perspective on everything. Like I don't deserve anything. I'm not deserving. I mean, I'm bottom of the bottom. I'm trash. I'm a failure.
Everybody is not. There's nobody deserving. Not one person is deserving. Not one. If you really think about it, not one person is deserving.
Right.
But in Jesus' eyes, everybody's deserving. Everybody. And you were talking about how hard it is, and it's funny because today I was sitting in my blind, things run through your mind, and I'm reading through verses, and I'm thinking, and I remember growing up, or I was growing up, but the boys were growing up, I remember telling them, anything good, it's not going to be easy.
No.
And if it's easy, it ain't good.
Right.
And so when you were talking about, like how hard it is, every day it's a struggle, but it's hard, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. But it's good.
Yeah.
When you're not doing it and it ain't hard and you're thinking it's good, it ain't good.
Right.
Because on the backside of it, it's miserable.
And that's the whole key is like living for the world is so easy. It's so easy to fall into temptation. It's so easy to fall into sin. It's so easy to fall into everything.
Yeah.
Like literally living for the world.
Yeah.
What is hard is denying the world and trusting in Jesus and fighting every day, to live for Him.
But how much better do you feel? Like, so when you were out running around and you were doing all this stuff, and even me, like when I was younger and I was just freaking, I was thinking, boy, I'm living it up, and then it seemed like every day I'd wake up, I was just miserable.
And that's the thing is like, you chase those worldly desires, and you always feel empty. Nothing ever satisfies you.
You're right.
You might be satisfied for the moment. You might be satisfied for the day, but you're still going to wake up empty. There's a void inside of you that I know everybody feels, and the only person that can fill that void is Jesus. 100%.
It's amazing, man. When you tell somebody that maybe are lukewarm and they haven't felt it, I've been there, but when you commit and like you said, you're all in, when you're all in, and what comes back to you is a fulfillment that you cannot explain. You can explain it, but you can't.
Right.
You really can't explain it because it's a fulfillment and a feeling like nothing I've ever felt. And I'm sure you're the same way. It's just
100%.
It's just different.
And what I found is important is that you've got to surround yourself with people that have the same goal, that are
like-minded,
chasing Jesus. They want to be disciples, but people get this perspective of like, oh, that clique, that them, this, that church group, whatever. But we're doing that for a reason. It's like we're keeping each other accountable. I want somebody to keep me accountable and say, hey, you're slipping up, or hey, I want to be able to have those conversations with people that I can trust, that is in my circle, that has the same goal as I do. We all go through struggles, and it's important to have relationships to where you can communicate and say, "Hey, man, I'm really struggling with this. Like, hey, I need you to help me out here," and talk through that. Like, you've got to surround yourself with that, and it's one of the biggest reasons why we're selling our house is to move to New Johnsonville, to be closer to our church and be closer to our church group and our family, and completely be engulfed in that. You know, uh, that just really came, upon us and was like, we need to do this. We want to be as close to them as we can. We want to be so involved and try to be intertwined. That's why, our church group, our Sunday school class has been amazing. We call it the youngish Sunday school class because we're anywhere from 18 to however old you want to be in that class. And, we're just in there and we get together and we fellowship and we hang out and, we have group messages where we communicate. We just try to be there for each other. It's a struggle. Every day is a struggle, but we also try to be disciples and reach out and try to, influence people to join us, and that's really my whole perspective in life has changed. It's like I want it's not about me anymore. It's about others, like trying to do good for people. And I think about my children, like how good it feels just to have my children to be as young as they are, you know, to be so in tune with what's going on and talking about Jesus daily, hearing them pray, daily. It's it's something that I never had, and like that has always been my goal, and that's what my grandma kind of, you know, basically put on me was to try to break the cycle and just live for God and change everything. And everybody can do that. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just I think it's important for people to hear, because if you grow up in church, like I just say my preacher for example, he's been in church his whole life, and he's an amazing guy. I think a lot of them have a lot of respect for him. Super thankful for him because I wouldn't be where I'm at without him. We met for 6 or 8 months every week and sat down and talked and went over scripture, and it really meant a lot to me, and it really helped me grow. And I'm not even close to where I need to be, like not even close. And I want to continue to grow.
You can give a shout out to your preacher because I mean, go if you want to. I mean, if you want to mention his name,
Yeah, Aaron Morton at Trace Creek Baptist Church.
Okay.
I mean, he's been phenomenal. But like him, he's grew up in church his whole life. He had a great upbringing. So I compare him to me. Like, yes, he has a great. He's been led his whole life. He's had the right people in his life to show him the way. I didn't, and I feel like it's a stronger testimony for me talking to people because not everybody there's people that go through things that I've gone through. There's things that are people that are going through that right now that are or have gone through it or they will go through it. And it's just like it's not the end all be all. Like there's still a chance for you to completely do a 180 and change your life and live for God. And that's the most important thing because the truth is when we're all going to die. And one day, there's going to be a judgment and we're going to go before God. And, trusting and believing in Him washes away our slate. Like it's a full slate clean. And we want to spend eternity in life with Jesus and everybody else. But if you don't live for Him and if you don't devote your life to Him or get to know Him and have a relationship with Him, then you're not going to be in heaven. I mean, it's a reality. Um, this life is so short and so small, like it's going to be gone in a flash. And the older I get, and I'm sure you've realized it too, but the older you get, I mean, the clock is ticking. You know what I mean? It's like
your way of thinking changes
oh,
too.
100%.
Yeah, your way of thinking changes.
But I don't know, man. I'm just thankful.
So throughout your story, you kept saying, man, I don't know why I got through this. I have no idea how I got through it. I don't know why I got through this next step. I have no idea how I got through it, but I got through it. Well, you know, David, I think your story's just starting. Like, there's something, he's got you here for a reason.
Right.
There's a reason you're here. There's a reason there's things that you're doing right now. And I think it's coming. Like there's things that are going to be coming, and I think they're all going to be good things. And I think God knows your plan. He's got you,
Right.
and I think the reason that all this is happening is there's really good things coming. And I think you just reached a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are going to sit back and think and there's going to be some people, like you said, that they can't see that light at the end of the tunnel, but it's there, like it's there, and I really do think that you coming on here, it was a blessing for me, like, uh, you know, it touched me, man, like it really touched me, indeed, and of course, I love KK, man. I love the kids, uh, they all mean a lot to me. And, you know, I'm just blessed. I'm happy for y'all. I'm happy the way things are going for you. And, like I said, man, again, thank you for your service. Like, you know, there's so much to be said there. Like, just by your story, you left and you wanted to go to Afghanistan, knowing it was going to be, I mean, who does that? You know what I'm saying? Like but God, but listening to your story, He had your hand all the time.
And that's what I was going to say is like just a few months ago, we were in church and on Wednesday nights, we have a kids rock thing at Church Creek and we eat and the kids, they eat and they have their classes that they go to. The adults go into class and it's not like a normal church service where you have a sermon. We talk about certain things and it's discussion. And we were sitting there and Frankie Burleson was actually the one that was given the message and we were discussing back and forth and it just hit me. I'm talking about when it hit me, it just like opened my eyes, like all those prayers that I prayed while I was over there. I just realized in that moment at church that night that He had answered all those prayers for me.
Sure.
He had given me everything that I asked for. And I didn't even deserve it. I wasn't even worthy. And for Him to answer all those prayers exactly the way that I prayed them, I mean, He gave me a beautiful wife and 4 beautiful children. And He got me through everything that I've been through. And I realized that. And I'm talking about like it broke me down. And, it just shows like trust in Him, pray to Him. I mean, He's going to answer your prayers. May not be on your timeline, may not be when you want it or how you want it, but He hears it and He's got a plan for you. And, for me, I think about it this way is like, I feel like if you're not in God's will, if you're not on His plan, He's going to let you know real quick. You're going to get slapped in the face. You're going to get kicked down to the ground. And it's going to be like, okay, there's something going on here. Like, there's a reason why this bad stuff keeps happening. It's because you're not on the right path. You're not doing God's will. God has a will for everybody. And if you're not following it, His will for you, He's going to let you know. So if you're living your life and you keep falling and you keep failing and you keep, why does this keep happening to me? I don't understand what's going on. Like, it's probably because you're not living the way you should. You're not living on God's will, the path for Him. And that's what kind of opened my eyes, was like, okay, I hear you loud and clear now, like I read you loud and clear. So it really opened my eyes to that. And, I was just so taken back by, and what's sad is it took me that long to realize that He had answered all my prayers. And I just felt so ashamed to not, why he did that for me and I didn't even deserve it. So it's just a lot, but hopefully somebody out there somewhere is, this touches them and maybe opens their eyes a little bit. And, that's all I can hope for.
Oh, I think it's going to. And David, again, thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you again for your service. And so we're going to wrap up this episode number 4. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this is a blessing to someone out there, and I think it will be. David, thank you again so much for coming on here, man. I mean, it's truly a blessing to me, and I hope it is to each and every one out there.